Welcome to Grad School Life by PhD Balance, where we students about the behind the scenes day-to-day life in their programs. I'm your host, Courtney Applewhite. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm a PhD candidate in the Department of Religious Studies at the University of California, Santa Barbara, studying death. Please don't forget to like and subscribe on your chosen platform to get notifications about new episodes. And if you've been enjoying this new segment, please leave us a 5-star review. The 5-star review helps us reach more potential and current graduate students with your stories, which is really our mission. So if you have a little bit of extra time, just hit those 5 stars and help people find us. Today, I'm joined by Ellen Taraskiewicz. And if you thankfully haven't heard the editing of me attempting that a couple of times at this point for some reason, it's a mental block, but welcome, Ellen. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Sure. Ellen is a third-year PhD student in the Department of History at Indiana University with a concentration in 20th-century American Jewish history. Her research interests include Jewish youth culture, student organizations, American Zionism, and the digital preservation of student archival methods. Ellen received her BA in history from Temple University in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. While in Philly, she spent time cataloging defunct synagogues in the Jewish quarter of South Philadelphia and began research on her current dissertation topic, Zionist student organizations, which I can't wait to hear more about. So thank you for joining us and being here.
Yeah, thank you. Like I said, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
And so tell me, we like to start our show with something that you do on a daily basis that gives your PhD life balance.
Sure. So I actually, every morning, I go and I grab one of my 2 tarot decks and I shuffle them. I kind of try to give myself a little bit of time to meditate. And then I pull 3 cards and figure out essentially how my day is going to go. Usually I spend the day reflecting on what I pull. I'm actually looking at my 3 that I had pulled this morning. And yeah, so typically once I get to the end of the day, I try to reflect on like, okay, well, I pulled justice and the star. So a lot of major arcana. So a lot of big things, a lot of things were happening today, which makes sense because there was a lot of big things that happened today. But yeah, typically a tarot deck is what I go with.
I love that practice. And so do you find that it helps you, it's more of just an intention setting, or it allows you to be more mindful throughout your day? Is that sort of the aim of the pull?
Yeah, 100%. It's not like I'm trying to tell my future. It's more of I read what the card means, and then I'm like, okay, like how am I going to pull that into my day? And then if it, by the end of the day, if it matches, then job well done.
Yeah, that's excellent. And so if you reflect on your time of going to grad school in the very beginning, so why did you decide to apply to grad school, and what did you think it would be like when you got there?
Why did oh gosh. I knew that I wouldn't be able to be a quote unquote proper historian if I didn't go to graduate school. Obviously there are plenty of historians who never get their PhDs or masters, but I felt compelled to pursue history all the way to the end, mainly because I felt like it would help the academy and also my field take me seriously. And so I expected that, it would be this huge enriching endeavor and that I would come out at the end, more historian than ever. And I guess I thought it was, I think I took a little too much from I don't know, I'm trying to think of the movie. Maybe I don't know why Good Will Hunting, but also Dead Poet Society, where it was just this, collaborative effort. And unfortunately it didn't end up being that way for a while. But yeah, definitely different than my expectations for sure.
Yeah, I think that's something that the humanities are particularly guilty of in some ways, right? It's not as much of a collaboration at a lot of points. It's very by yourself. It's your project, it's your responsibility, it's your deadlines. And that can be a lot to take on, more than people anticipate sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so now at this point in your degree, what does your day-to-day actually look like?
Well, so I just wrapped up my second year of coursework. I've completed my master's, and now I'm moving into the oral exams. So my day-to-day is about, over the summer, I'll be actually taking archival research trips to the East Coast and spending hours in the archives and libraries. But once the fall semester starts, you essentially every day I will be spending 8 to 9 hours reading, reading full books, depending on who my committee is, that can be 200 books or that could be 500 books. So that's essentially, yeah, all reading all the time.
Yeah. And have you gotten into that phase yet where you've started reading, or are you still finalizing your lists?
No, I have started reading. So I have my major in history is American history. So I started on the 20th century history books. And then over the summer, I'll move over to American Jewish history. And then hopefully by the fall, I can start getting into more methodology and other things that are going to be good to incorporate into my dissertation.
Yeah. Yeah. The reading part for when I was studying for my exams is definitely like, it is a surreal experience, I think, looking back on it, because it is just this period where you're doing nothing but consuming information. And it is, I don't know, it depends on your committee, certainly, but for mine, they were very hands off. They were like, okay,
Uh-huh.
see you in a year. And I was like, great.
But I actually, so when you did your oral or you did your exams, did you then follow it up with your proposal defense, or was
Yeah.
there? Okay.
Yeah. So it was pretty close. So I did my defense for my exams in like September, and then in December I defended my proposal. So it was like
Okay.
right after each other. Do you do them at the same time, or will you have a period of time?
Yeah, they always want you to have it almost right after your orals. So I'm aiming to complete my orals in probably March of 2023, and then I will defend my proposal in April or May.
Yeah, I think that timeline seems to be pretty consistent
Mhm.
across a lot of humanities fields in particular. And I know in the sciences it can vary, but for humanities people, it's kind of like what it looks like.
Yeah.
And so, can you walk us through at this point a typical day? Like, when do you get up? When do you eat? When are you doing your work? What does your work look like?
Yeah, sure. So for whatever reason, I wake up at 9:15 every morning. I am not a morning person, but for some reason, my body will not stop just waking me up at that time, even on the weekends. And I know that's sounds weird because my friends in my cohort wake up at 5 a.m., 5 a.m., 7 a.m., and are already like well ahead of me. Um, and I don't I usually, so starting the day, I get a coffee and chocolate croissant. And then I spend the majority of the day in our graduate lounge in the history department. And I just sit there, and typically I'm either doing one of two things. I'm either certainly this semester was a little bit different because we went on strike.
Mm.
And so our union, part of like the strike pledge was to stop teaching your course and to stop grading. So on a typical day, I was usually going through 65 students' discussion posts and their tests or assignments and grading those. Or on the flip side, writing one of the three papers for my final. But once strike hit, I actually got to completely take myself out of the TA role and just focus on my research. So I timed it. So I'd spend about 7 hours reading books and taking notes for my research. So
Yeah, that is a long period of time to be
it
reading.
is, you also, I don't know if you have the same thing. I always get very lost. Even when I'm taking notes, I get lost in the books I'm in. So I will look up and it's like, oh, it's been 3 hours and I haven't moved, and maybe I should take a walk.
Yeah. Yeah, no, totally. I think that happened to me a lot. I was trying all these very bizarre things when I was doing my exams. I got like a music stand so I could put my
Oh.
book on the music stand and stand up and like read like with better posture, basically. So I was like I had music in front of me or whatever. So I was doing all kinds of weird stuff like that during my process.
That's so smart.
Yeah.
That's actually a great idea.
Well, yeah, please. It was so I would like, and you can move it up and down. So sometimes I would sit on a Swiss ball, like which I sit on now. I'd sit on a Swiss ball and then I'd stand up and then I'd like go outside with it sometimes and I would just stand with it. So yeah, I did all kinds of bizarre stuff to kind of like, yeah, because exactly you can get so lost in it and then you like extract yourself from your like hunched reading position and you're like crackling.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and you kind of touched on this when you talked about the strike, because we also we striked during my, gosh, it must have been my second or third year. So I was also in the position where I was TAing, but I wasn't reading for exams just yet. So you talked about how your day might not look like a typical day at this point, but can you also just talk about like, so on a perfect day, you're up at 9:15, you have your breakfast, and then you go and do your work and in whatever form that looks like. Do you ever have days that don't look like that?
I do. Usually those days are full of meetings.
Mm.
Typically, for some reason, well, because I've been way outside of the union. There's just a lot going on in the history department, but also I was, especially this past year, I've been working on a digital humanities project. And that required not only speaking to people who do digital humanities, but also talking to people, copyright librarians and people from different archives across the country. And so I typically, if it's not a typical day like that, I'm in meetings and trying to situate myself in my archival research.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's sometimes hard for me. Do you find that it's hard on days where you have heavy meetings to get back into some of that thought work?
Oh, when I can't, I honestly can't. It's either I start the day with that thought work and then move into meetings, or I just dedicate the whole day to meetings and like I just don't even think about my research.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's so hard to transition at that point, especially on Zoom. It's sometimes really hard to, I don't know, to get past like being on Zoom with people for hours and then trying to be like, okay, now I'm going to try and read, and your brain's just fried and it's hard.
Exactly. And yeah, especially on Zoom. I think I've had more meetings on Zoom in my almost 3 years than I've had in person with professors or even just like people in general. So it's exhausting.
Yeah. And are there any tools or techniques that you use on a daily basis that sort of help you do your work or help you or like just aid you in whatever way?
Yeah. So a group of friends of mine from my cohort and the one below us, and actually it's kind of expanding. We have the Discord, and we have what is called the accountability room. And so all of us, depending on what our schedules are, there's always somebody in the accountability room, which is a voice channel. And you go in there and you state your intention. You say like, for an hour, I'm going to read 30 pages of this article or book and take notes. And then, they tell you what they're doing. And then you set a timer for like an hour. And then you come back and you say, okay, I did it. Or I didn't do it and now I have to do it. So that's the biggest tool. We just like use each other to keep ourselves going, especially during finals. That was a huge thing.
Yeah, that's such a good idea. What platform do you use to do that?
Discord,
Yeah.
although we were for a while on using GroupMe and Slack, but we found Discord because of its ease of access. And also two people in the group are international. So we're on different time zones, but everyone has access to the same platform. So it was the easiest one to go with.
Yeah, that's really awesome. I think that that's a great idea. And it seems to echo a lot of like, there's even like in the quote unquote productivity space, there's a lot of people talking about building whole apps based on this idea. So it's awesome that you have a small group of people that are excited to support each other in that way. I think that that's really, really useful.
Yeah, there's also one that because I spent an ungodly amount of time on the internet, but also Reddit. that there was like this amazing one that was like called GoToMeeting. I mean, that's just the platform, but it was like people from all over the world, like scholars, and no one talks, but like it's just like a room, and it's, I don't know what it is. Some people can't do work in coffee shops or with people, but if I know people are kind of watching me, which now is also kind of sounding like Foucault, that I need like a panopticon to do work, which is not what I intended, but maybe that is what is happening here. But anyway, I don't know. I enjoy it a lot.
Yeah, you can tell you're in the middle of reading for your exams when you start realizing Foucault is like the lens through which you see the world now.
And I hate it.
Okay, well, what do you want to do next? Do you have an idea of what's next for you?
In terms of grad school or?
Grad school, and then if you're thinking about post-grad school at all.
Oh, sure. So yeah, I want to become a digital historian. There's an institute at Indiana. It's called IDA, the Institute of Digital Arts and Humanities. And it's run by one of the most amazing professors, Dr. Kalani Craig. And she's a medievalist. So she got her degree and she teaches medieval classes. But at the same time, she is also the director of this institute. And it kind of combines that kind of like sweet spot of like getting to teach what you love, but at the same time also work in a space that's kind of new and exciting. So I would love to either bring that to a university that doesn't have a digital humanities initiative, or join an organization that does, and start to bring in other like my digital archiving experience and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's so awesome. And I think that honestly is where a lot of the research in the humanities is trending. Because when you talk, so I do ethnographic research, and when you talk about like the internet, like that is an entire pool of digital ethnography that you can like get into. So even, I know you're coming at it from a historical perspective, but even in a contemporary ethnographic perspective, like the internet is such a presence in our life. It's like it's almost integrated at this point. So it's like to say that it's almost like it feels like all humanities is going to eventually become digital humanities because we can't extricate the two in some ways.
Right. Yeah. So you find, say, I know you study death. So you find what's the digital culture around death on the internet, or is there one?
Yeah, totally. So there is a lot of platforms that talk about it. There's a heavy meme culture around death, as you might imagine. So there's a visual culture. There's also and you know, one of the big voices in the death online world is Caitlin Doty, who does the Order of the Good Death, and she's heavy presence on YouTube. She has like millions and millions of followers. So there's a video educational component to it as well. And of course, you have Reddit too that talk about death and existentialism, and so there's a few different brands of it, but it's a lot. There's a lot of meme culture. There's a lot of comic culture, and then there's a lot of talk about alternatives too, which is specifically not alternatives to death, but alternatives with respect to what to do with your body after death, which is my area of research. So I've been researching how people are talking about, and there's like the hoax stuff too. I could go on and on because there's all these things coming out. They're like, turn your body into a giant pod that your like body will be put into a fetal position, and it's like not a viable thing, but it was like a very, very popular concept. So anyway, that all to say that, yeah, it's becoming like a really big topic online and death talk is a big thing too. So the TikTok area of death, where they have a lot of where they have a lot of funeral home directors and things like that on there, kind of debunking a lot of the mystery behind death. Here comes my cat.
Nice. So very, very quickly, my friend who is a medievalist, and she studies dead people. I mean, historians study dead people, but she really studies dead people. She studies ghosts and everything. But we're huge fans of cemeteries. I know that sounds weird, but the idea that because we have this contention, or well, she has a contention that there is no death culture in the United States, because of I mean, there's a lot of things, the pathology of it, but also the institutionalization of death, and it's how we've gone further. So would you say we're actually moving back, like the fact that all those things exist, like is the death culture just moving, it's just on a different space now, it's on a different plane, which is the internet?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's all kinds of interesting articles about how Gen Z and millennials really are much more like quote unquote death positive or death accepting.
Mhm.
And so, because there's a lot more of like open conversation, this happened around COVID where millennials were talking to their parents about really openly about what to do if they died now that COVID was such a threat and things like that. So I actually do think it's shifting, and it's a lot of it has to do with this awareness that the US is a death denying culture. The idea that like, we put death in hospitals, we put death in the funeral homes, and we put it away from our homes and our houses. And we don't have cultural importance like the Dia de los Muertos celebrations in Mexico, for example. So yeah, so it's almost a response, like a generational response to a death denial that is becoming way more popular. Like I said, like Caitlin Doughty has millions of followers on YouTube. There's a lot of Instagram and TikToks that have millions of followers that are all about death. So I do think that it's a shift that's happening. Which
That's
we should do a
excellent.
whole episode on. We should just get all the deaf people on and just have a round table, historical, contemporary, all the run the gamut of it.
I mean, please do, because I would love to, I would listen to that and then just go, I would love to go on forever about just the whole idea of it, and like how we got here, and so
Yeah.
please do, if that does come down the pipeline.
Yeah, totally. I'll put that on the docket.
Heck yeah.
Well, where can our listeners find you if they want to learn more about your work and what you're doing?
Sure. So they can find me on Twitter. It's at History of Sloths. Sorry to disappoint, I do not cover the history of sloths, although I did think of attempting that at one point, but not a lot of history for sloths. So
Well, that's okay. I think that that's probably a niche that does need to be filled. But if you've already done all the work that there is on the history of sloths, then mission accomplished.
yeah.
Well, we'll put that in the show notes if people want to connect with you. And thank you so much. This was great. Thank you for having this conversation with me.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was great to talk and be here. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and thanks to everyone for joining us. This has been Grad School Life by PhD Balance. Episodes of Grad School Life are posted on Thursdays, and Grad Chat episodes are now posted Saturdays on our podcast and our YouTube channel. For more information about Grad School Life by PhD Balance, you can check out our website, phdbalance.com, or follow us on Twitter and Instagram at PhD_balance. I'd also like to plug our Discord channel, which you were mentioning earlier, which does offer forums for conversation, advice, co-working, and more. So head to phdbalance.com to find the link to join. And then you can find me at CAppleWhiteX on Twitter and Instagram. Until next time, bye y'all, and take care of yourselves.